Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for January 13th through the 19th. This week's theme is enthusiastic expression. We have a full moon in the sign of Cancer. We have Venus and Neptune and Saturn and Jupiter all in these different aspects. And also, we're moving into Aquarius season. And also, the nodes have changed signs. So, a lot to talk about this week. My name is Shauna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm so honored and excited to share the astrology of this week with you from a depth psychological perspective. So, let's start at the beginning. So the nodes have changed signs this week, and I also realized the nodes technically changed signs on Sunday, and frankly, I don't know why I didn't talk about it last week, because technically it should have been in last week, but we're here now, so we're going to talk about it now. So the North Node and the South Node are the nodes, N-O-D-E-S. There's two of them, and they're always opposite one another. And the nodes change signs about every year and a half. So it's an important transit. It's something that happens, I would say, within the grand scheme of life fairly often. And it's also important to track when there's a transition, because a change in the sign of the nodes means that there's a shift in the energy, especially around the transitions, the endings, and the beginnings that we experience from time to time over this year and a half period. These year and a half, we could think of them as year and a half cycles. And also, they have an impact on how we experience eclipses. Because really, the nodes are not physical bodies. They're not actually a planet or something physical in the celestial sky. We can think of them as markers. They mark where eclipses happen. That is literally what they are. They are this marker in the sky where, when the sun and the moon come to this point in the zodiac, that we know there will be an eclipse there. There will either be a full moon eclipse or a new moon eclipse. And so the nodes give us insight into the themes that collectively that we're experiencing through the eclipses over time, again, this year and a half period, and then personally also how this is tracking within your birth chart. So that's my spiel, I guess, on the nodes. And the nodes have been in Aries and Libra for the last year and a half or so. And they are, the nodes also, other side note, the nodes are always moving in a backwards or retrograde fashion through the zodiac. So they're moving back into Pisces and Virgo. North Node is moving into Pisces, South Node is moving into Virgo. And so this is happening this week. So the nodes are in Pisces and Virgo from this week, January 2025, through to July of 2026. And this is a shift in our experience of ingoing and outgoing energy. We can think of the nodes as portals, as doorways, as gateways, where something can come in to our lives and something can exit our lives, whether that is situations, behaviors, awarenesses, patterns, people, etc. And so there's this shift from the focus on transitions, changes in your life, being more about the self and relationships, your own independent individual selfhood, which is Aries, and then Libra, which is relationships literally, or relational dynamics. That's a very reductive way of looking at those signs, but we can think about it that way just for this moment. And then there's this shift on the last year and a half, that being the focus, to Pisces and Virgo, which as a pair, as a polarity, are more about our awareness, our consciousness, and our processes. So these two are about how we conceptualize things, how we experience the world, how we make sense of things, and how we move forward through a situation. And also with Virgo Pisces, there is this theme around healing as well, and how we bring help and healing to ourselves and to others. So this is the emphasis going forward, this emphasis around how it is that you process things, how you go about your life in a day-to-day fashion, which is more Virgo, and then what your consciousness experiences around that. Pisces being states of consciousness and how we interact with the world. And Pisces is really about our internal experience, whereas Virgo is about our external experience. So that's a big change, and we'll talk more about it, of course, over time, especially when we get into eclipse season. So again, this is really denoting how we may experience eclipses. And the eclipses, of course, will happen when we have Pisces season coming up in the next couple of months, and then again when we have Virgo season in the fall. And so you can also be thinking about how your life has changed and transitioned over the last year and a half, especially around your own selfhood and your relationships, and then how you want to move into changes or transitions going forward as far as how you experience things, and being open to experiencing things in different ways. And then I think this is also, frankly, a really beautiful transit for giving or receiving healing, whether that is psychotherapy or energetic healing or physical healing, mental, physical, emotional. Those things are all interconnected, of course, and so something to think about. Now, let's see. Also this week, we have our full moon in the sign of Cancer, and this full moon is connecting into a lot of the astrology that's happening this week. So we're going to break it down into different chunks. So full moon is always when we have the polarity, the opposition of the sun, in this case the sun in Capricorn and the moon in the sign of Cancer. And so a full moon in Cancer, there is this theme around nurturing, security, our experience of maternal phenomena coming up, how we experience the feeling of nurturing or maternalness, or how we embody maternal roles in ourselves, or how we experience that in others. I think that when we're talking about Cancer as a sign, we can also think of it as connecting in with your ancestral line, whether that is conscious or unconscious, and especially the maternal ancestral line, and the generational dynamics that come through you, that are really that you are embodying in your life, and that may come up more to your attention. So to put this more simply, it may simply be that family dynamics are more in your awareness during this particular full moon. And we can also think of a full moon in Cancer as emotional expression, and an awareness of if you feel the emotional safety that you are craving or not. Moon, of course, is about our emotions, our intuitions, it's also about our psychosomatic connection, so how our emotions or our thoughts or our mind, our psyche, has this connection with our physical body. And the moon rules Cancer, so it is in the sign that it rules here. So the moon is really in its own natural state of being here, we could say. And so these themes around the psychosomatic connection and intuition and feelings are multiply amplified, and there's multiple layers here. So it's really intuition and emotions and the body-mind connection are really emphasized with this particular full moon. And the other piece of this that's really important, or wait, let's see, hang on, do I want to say more about this? Yes, I do. So this full moon is happening at 23 degrees of Cancer, and it's happening exactly on Monday, the 13th of January at 2:27 p.m. Pacific time. And so, of course, always with the lunations, and I think especially the full moon, we're always watching how we feel the days leading up to it, the day of course, and then the days following it, because it's sort of like this bell-shaped sort of phenomenon where there's a lead up and then a dissolving, like a wave. And so I encourage you to notice like really what feelings are coming up. This moon is all about the feelings, the intuition, the gut instinctual reaction, and to also know that sometimes the body communicates for us, or sometimes our external environment communicates for us or to us. And so it's not just necessarily about what you're feeling, it's also about being in a field of experience. And I think this particular lunation, especially this particular full moon, we can look at the events surrounding it as almost like they're a dream. And so like, you know, something happens, you have a chance meeting, or you drop something, or you run into someone, whatever. We can look at trying to understand maybe the synchronistic piece of this and how you are communicating to yourself, how psyche, the world, is communicating to you and through you. Okay, now the other piece of this is that this full moon is very closely conjunct, very closely next to Mars in Cancer. Mars retrograde in Cancer. And so if you remember, Mars has just freshly moved back into the sign of Cancer. And Mars is a symbol of vitality, action, anger, courage, fear, our inner strength and enthusiasm, our motivation to do. It's also connected to themes around protection and advocacy, defending. I think that Mars in Cancer especially is connected to themes of emotional risk and emotional safety, or emotional unsafety, as well as things like Mars is also has this drawing of boundaries or sharpness to it, so it can also be connected to cutting ties or securing something or releasing something as well. So typically a full moon is a culmination sort of feeling. There's like this everything is on display as much as possible. Everything is able to be felt as much as possible. It's so much more of a culmination versus a releasing kind of energy. I think there can be some, I'm saying that because I think I hear that there can sometimes be some confusion where in some systems, some folks have heard that the full moon is connected to releasing. And I think that is very, in my experience at least, that is very different. Whereas the way that I conceptualize it, again, always take everything that I say with a grain of salt. You see what feels right for you, and what is right for you is right for you. I digress. So the full moon, in my experience, tends to be this feeling of fullness, of richness, of culmination, of a lot of activity and a lot of feelings. And then in the week or two, the 2 weeks really following the full moon, there's this sort of exhale feeling, and that is where we get into the letting go and releasing and I hear the word like detoxing, like this sort of like cleansing and clearing kind of energy. That's really in the week before the new moon. So anyways, I didn't want to make this video all about the lunation dynamics, but I'm bringing this up because Mars has this phenomenon around this like cutting ties or releasing or pruning, sort of like shoring up the boundary of things. And so that may be something that comes up here as well. I will say when Moon and Mars are in an aspect together, especially a conjunction like this, but frankly any aspect, there is this theme around passion and enthusiasm. It can very easily be anger or agitation. And I think it is so important to create a non-judgmental space for yourself to experience anger and agitation and frustration. And to look at those feelings as informational, as there is something that is bothering you. Clearly, right? If you're feeling upset or annoyed or whatever, there is something that is bothering you. And that does not mean that you need to find a way to be unbothered. That means that there is either a couple things. There is either something that needs to change so that you feel safe and that you feel like your boundaries are not being crossed. Often anger is a sign that a boundary has been crossed, or that you are doing something that you really don't want to do, or that you don't feel okay with, or that you feel a sense of duty or obligation, etc. Or anger can sometimes be a sign that there's some dysregulation that's happening. And that may or may not mean that an external situation needs to change. It may be something that, you do to tend to your own system, your own energy body, your own nervous system. But I think it's really important to look at anger as like, oh, like what's happening here? What's going on? What do I need? How can I, even if you have to be in the situation as it exists, how can you meet yourself where you're at? And what do you need right now in order to be able to cope with your current circumstances? And that feels so key and so crucial when we're talking about this like super feely time with this full moon with Cancer. What are your emotional needs, wants, and desires? And like I can like already hear like, well, I want this, but like that's not practical, or I can't get it, or I don't have that available. And like, yes, of course. And also it feels for me really crucial to, and this is something I'm sharing with you because it's something that I work on myself as well in my own therapy process, is naming what I want or need, even if that is or is not, like regardless of if that is practically something that I can get or do or arrange for or whatever. When we're talking about the moon and Cancer, it also, in addition to maternal and nurturing experiences, it connects us to this child experience, the experience of needing. And so I think it's also really important to, and really empowering and clarifying, to simply be able to name what it is that you want or need or would like, your preference even. What is that? And to just be able to identify that can sometimes soothe and calm down the psyche or the nervous system. You let me know how this sits with you, of course, always. So that's a really big theme this week. That is a loud volume phenomenon. Like that part of that instrument in the song is like very loud, or the volume is high. Okay, so, okay, also connected in with this particular full moon is a couple of different things. It is making a helpful, supportive sextile aspect to Uranus and Taurus. And I like this because this gives like an opportunity for freedom or reinvention or some kind of change, something that creates a sense of revolution, something like the sextile is a more minor aspect, but it feels, but it is tends to be supportive. So it feels like there's something here where there are resources that are available for a spontaneous revisioning around something this week. Now, also what's happening that is a helpful aspect is that this full moon and Mars are making a helpful trine aspect to the North Node in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, and Venus in Pisces. So we got a lot going on in Pisces. So we know it's a trine because they're in the same element. They're in the water element. And so this is what I think about this. With Pisces, there's a strong theme around this like synchronicity, being in the flow. There's also this theme around altruistic or selfless service, like acts of service. There's this phenomenon around being generous and looking to how it is that one can be of service to the community in a way that is really like decentering the ego self or the benefit to yourself. I think also Pisces, especially this combination with Neptune and with the North Node, there is spiritual support. We could think of it as spiritual support or support from your ancestors, or support via your spiritual or meditative work that you do, or creative work, work with arts or creativity. And also, of course, the North Node and Neptune, there can be this theme, when those symbols get distorted, there can be a theme around enmeshment, which is like confusing what is yours versus someone else's, or taking on someone else's emotional experience. There can be themes around codependence, which frankly I'm not a fan of the term codependence because I feel like it gets misunderstood. The way that I'm using it in this moment is that it is feeling, codependence is when you feel responsible for someone else's feelings, actions, or experience in a way that is like you are solely responsible for how they feel or how they act. And this sort of, again, that's connected to emotional enmeshment, in that it's a confusion, or not even a confusion. Let's see, what do I want to say here? It's like what you feel and what someone else feels. It's confusing to discern whose is what. It feels like everything is all in this big soup. So I share that because this is maybe a possible way that this could look in practical terms is maybe you have a feeling, let's say that's anger, it's Mars-like, or agitation or whatever, and you're like, why am I so mad right now? Like, nothing has happened, but I'm like annoyed or whatever. And it's hard to identify, like, what is that? And then you realize you had a conversation with someone like a couple of hours ago or the day before who was like, is going through a hard time and is really upset or mad or whatever. And it's like, oh, that feeling. Of course, you experience anger as a human, and maybe there is something even in your life that is irksome. But that feeling, there was a confusion that feeling from that person sort of got mixed in with your own experience of your emotions. Of course, that doesn't happen to everyone. That tends to be something that folks who are like, I think the term empath is commonly used for that kind of experience. Anyways, my point is that when we have such an emphasis around Pisces, and especially the North Node and Neptune, there can be this like, wait, what's happening? It's kind of like all in the soup. So I think in those moments, really helpful to bring your focus into what you're feeling and to bring your attention back to yourself. That can be anchoring and centering. Now, the other combination here is Saturn and Venus here, and so I think that this also connecting in with this full moon can be about collaborating or creating, especially in relationships. Venus Saturn is so about the making something beautiful real, the beautiful being Venus, the real being Saturn. And it can also be like feeling your way forward, embodying the North Node and the Neptune and even the Moon and Mars, that feeling your way forward into something that is practical, Saturn. Like, with this week, there's a lot of feeling and intuition sort of themes. And I like that Saturn is in the mix here because Saturn brings a root or an anchor into the situation. I think also with Venus Saturn being here, there can be possibly an impasse in relationships, or like a realization of how you want to proceed, and possibly sorting through maybe something that has been confusing, or sorting through what works for you or what doesn't work for you, or what is negotiable, what is non-negotiable. Saturn really is about becoming aware of the dynamics, the rules, and the agreements in your contract, in your relationships, like the contract of your relationships, whether that is explicitly stated or just in your own internal understanding of what it means to be in relationship with certain folks or with other people. I'll also say, I think Venus Saturn can be about getting more clear on what you want, and particularly in relationship, but Venus is so connected to our values in general. And so Venus Saturn in Pisces can be about what it is that you want, but like what you really actually want, not what you think you want, not what you want to want. I think that sometimes we want something that we want the ideal of something versus the actual thing. And I think that this can also apply to feelings as well, like that sometimes we don't want to feel a certain way even though we do, or and vice versa, we want to feel a certain feeling when we actually don't feel that way, or we think that we should feel a certain way. And so I think that Venus Saturn can be this voice of clarity and reason, and like this like discerning kind of factor or function. Again, it's in Pisces and it's making this trine to the Moon and Mars, so it's not quite like it's Venus and Saturn together like in an earth sign or something. It's not that like there's still a lot of water and feeling to it, but I think that it does have this sort of clarifying kind of tone. Now, I will say also, so again, like a lot this week, right? So, if you're like at max capacity for info, just let it wash over you. It's getting into your psyche somewhere. The other piece of this is that this is also Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces, both of them in Pisces together. They're making a square to Jupiter. And so, maybe you remember that we have had this Jupiter-Saturn square all of 2024. And it's present here this really like the first half chunk of 2025, I think. Maybe all of 2025, depending on how you count it. Anyways, I feel like this week I'm really in the Pisces kind of tone. So I appreciate you sticking with me. My way of communicating tends to be roundabout, and I think maybe even Pisces to some extent in general. And I'm really feeling it emphasized right now in this moment. Anyways, so Jupiter square Saturn has been happening. And then whenever we have another planet come into aspect with either Jupiter or Saturn, it sort of enlivens that energy that's been simmering in the background. We can think of Jupiter Saturn square has been simmering on the back burner, and then another planet comes in and it like either turns up the heat or it adds another ingredient. And so in this case, Venus is doing that. Venus is coming to its conjunction with Saturn in Pisces, and it's also squaring Jupiter in Gemini. And so I think this also adds this like creative, enthusiastic, like enthusiasm combined, like the enthusiasm of Jupiter, Venus combined with the devotion of Saturn, Venus. And so I think this further adds this like high on idealism kind of tone, but then also really wanting to make it practical. And whenever we have this kind of energy, it's a really beautiful time to let yourself dream, let yourself like really go into the fantasy of like what you want, what's important to you, what is your ideal. And then after you have had that experience of the Jupiter Pisces kind of expansion, then to bring it back in and to be like, okay, now that I know that about myself, what do my hopes, dreams, fantasies, what do they tell me is important to me? And then you have that info and you can proceed from where you're at now and connect into Saturn. Okay, so the last piece of what's happening this week is that the sun is moving into Aquarius. This is happening Sunday, the 19th of January. And so, happy birthday to all of the Capricorns that are in late degrees of Capricorn, and happy birthday to all of my Aquarius people. The sun is this spotlight for our conscious awareness. It is this traveling phenomenon showing where we have our conscious focus. And of course, the sun is so connected to our seasons. And our seasons also have this quality of where we focus our attention and energy. Of course, less so now that we're in the modern age and we have all of our technologies. And also still, we are, of course, like depending on how intense your seasons or your weather is, there is a definite shift in where your focus is, where your energy is, and what you're thinking and feeling about. So we can take that and then also think about the sun in astrology in this way, and that it's like the month by month season. And in this case, we're shifting from Capricorn this past month, which is inherently about, of course, the practical reality of things. Capricorn is very much about what it is that we are building and starting and initiating and what our long-term goals are. And then we're shifting into Aquarius, which is more about connecting with your authentic way of being, how you experience your own uniqueness, and then also stay connected to your humanity, the collective consciousness, your experience of being an individual within a group, and how you can navigate this what feels like a conundrum sometimes of being a part of the collective, being a part of the group, but then also retaining your own selfhood, your own unique sense of self and unique independent, your own unique independent self. Now also, of course, because we have Pluto in Aquarius, this automatically has an impact on any planet that moves through Aquarius. So any planet that moves through Aquarius, anyone that is born with planets in Aquarius during this time, they're going to have a Plutonian flavor to them. And Pluto, what this means, Pluto is a symbol of the mysterious, the hidden, the deep and intense, and like intense experiences in general. Pluto is so connected to life and death, and the life, death, rebirth experience, something falling away and then something new being born and emerging. And so what this means for us with the sun moving into Aquarius is that there's this because Pluto is at 1 degree of Aquarius, there's this very immediate awareness of something maybe that has been hidden, or something that has been unconscious, or bringing light to something that has maybe just been outside of your field of vision. So the hidden or the unconscious or the repressed, it doesn't always have to be something that is negative or bad or scary. Often it's sort of ironic, the thing that we sometimes fear acknowledging actually brings much vitality and life force. And so, of course, this is happening personally as well as collectively. And so I would say also with this, it makes sense to me that throughout the arc of the week, there is much feeling and processing and contemplating. And then on Sunday, when the sun moves into Aquarius and encounters Pluto, there might be this experience of either an intense experience or an intense feeling, or maybe something softer where it's just this realization of something that maybe was not, that you weren't aware of, and then you become conscious of it. That's very Sun Pluto. Sun Pluto as a combination is also very connected to your personal power as well. Pluto is so much about power and control and how we experience power. And so that also feels very heartening to me as well, that throughout the arc of this week, when you get to Sunday, there may be this sense of reclaiming something, reclaiming a part of yourself or an experience in a way that feels integrative. Okay, so let's pull some tarot, shall we? Okay, so as always, I invite you to, many thoughts coming to my mind right now. Always so curious how this is landing for you and how you're experiencing the astrology of this week. Whether you're listening ahead or you're listening midweek and you're in it. And now is a time where you can bring your focus to yourself, bring your focus to your own experience, and you can do that by finding stillness or finding movement. You can close your eyes, or you can focus on something in front of you that feels soothing. Whatever feels good to help you feel this sense of centeredness. And as you're here, imagine, if it's possible, imagine that you are contained within this beautiful bubble of light. And this light can take on any color that feels right to you right now. And this light is protective, it's supportive, and it helps you to connect. This is also a lovely time to request the presence of your spiritual guidance team, your ancestors, angels, whatever your relationship is with a benevolent, helpful force. Ask that they are here with you now to protect you, to help you, and to communicate with you in a way that you can easily understand right now. Okay. So I'm pulling 3 cards. If there is a number between 1 and 3 that speaks to you, that can be your card that's special to you. Okay. This is from this deck is the Tarot of Spells and Potions is what it's called. Okay, so first card is the 3 of Pentacles, and I did pull this card reversed. So in this card, in this deck, there are 3 people who are like peeking out from behind a curtain, and there's this pot of brew. There's like this brew that's sort of like bubbling over, and then there's a window behind them. And it looks like they're in this space with all of these different potions or bottles or tinctures or something like this. So the 3 of Pentacles tends to be a card that is about collaboration, projects, working together on something. It's usually a symbol of where many people come together and they each have something to offer that that is mutually beneficial. So this like concept of the sum of, gosh, I always get this wrong, of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, which is very alchemical. Like when a group comes together, several people come together, and then they all contribute something, but then the end result is like something that is that couldn't have come together just by like one piece. And so that I pulled this reversed, this tells me that maybe that is a question, maybe collaboration or working together. And also, as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about this in practical terms, but I'm also thinking of it as an internal process possibly as well. So this means like we could be thinking about this as like 3 different parts of yourself, or 3 different parts of your psyche are interacting with one another. And so there may be a question around for you around collaboration or things working together. Maybe it's not quite clear how things are going to come together. Maybe there are some missing pieces. Maybe it feels like things are in conflict, or it's not quite, like you're not quite sure about the mutual beneficence portion of it. I don't quite know. We're going to look at the other cards and see what they say, but there's this questioning or uncertainty or unclarity quite yet around things coming together in a way where all of the pieces fit. I will also say this card sometimes can be a message that you have something to offer, that you do really have something of value to offer, and that it's reversed tells me that maybe you don't feel that way, or maybe you're wondering what is that thing, and what's that gonna look like. So I think this theme of also that you have something of value. Gosh, and even as I say that, that is such a loaded thing to, like, how, uh, and this, I'm really thinking about Venus Saturn with this, like, how do you know that something is a value? Like, how do you measure that? Is that when someone else says it's a value? Is that when you feel it's a value? These are questions to maybe contemplate. Okay, so we're gonna maybe come back to that card. The second card is the Four of Pentacles. So another pentacle card. I pulled this up right. So in this image, a person is sitting on these two really adorable flowers, and they're like listening to one of the pentacles, like almost like a shell to their ear. And there's this really cool, like, comet kind of thing that's flying behind them. Looks like they're sort of listening to the pentacle to hear a message. So the Four of Pentacles is about practical security. It tends to be about your in and outflow of money. Four of Pentacles really makes me think of the second house and the eighth house, like this, like money, finances, values coming in, and then eighth house, all of, the money that we spend and the money going out. And it comes up when there is a question around these things. Sometimes it can be around finances. Sometimes it's more about the psychological phenomenon of having or giving or receiving. And I think sometimes this card can come up when we want to be a good steward of our resources, of our assets, of our energy, and what we give and receive. And I think it's very interesting that this is coming up following the Three of Pentacles, because it's literally the next card in the deck, 3 to 4 of Pentacles. And so it's like, yeah, there's something around, I don't know, like contributing, and it's like, what are you giving, what are you receiving? Maybe there's a question around reciprocity here, around how much to give and how much you expect to receive. And not in that it needs to be this like equation necessarily, but I'm also really thinking about Moon Mars here, and this like when things actually Moon Mars and also Venus Saturn, in that with both of these, when something has already felt a bit off balance, or something has felt like it's not quite been mutually reciprocal, we can start to feel like, wait a minute, I don't like this. But it can like come to our attention more consciously. So, okay, yeah, I'm really feeling that actually. So the last card is the Two of Cups. Two of Cups is all about relationships. And I did pull this one reversed as well. So it's interesting. We have like the two on the ends, the first card and the third card reversed. And in this image, there is two people that are sitting next to each other. And I actually quite love this card. They're sitting next to each other, and it looks like they're doing each other's makeup. And in the spirit of the Two of Cups, there is such like a sweet intimacy with this card. I think like it's very intimate to do someone else's makeup, and there's such care. And yeah, I really feel like the Cancerian energy of this, like the nurturing care and the beauty of it. So Two of Cups is about connections, relationships, intimacy. I would even say like the vulnerability of intimacy and relationships. And this can certainly be romantic, but it also is relationships in all manner of ways. It's like how we bond emotionally with other people. And so as I'm looking at all of this, and so that this is reversed also tells me that, yeah, like there's maybe a little bit of questioning or uncertainty or maybe insecurity around the relational phenomena of this. And so as I'm looking at all of this together and really taking in the astrology, there's something here around being with other people, the Three of Pentacles, around being with other people, around feeling like you are contributing, or like how you're a part of something, really, is the Three of Pentacles. How you are a part of something in a very practical way. And then the Four of Pentacles representing what it is that you are giving and receiving. And like that can be your emotional energy, your vitality, your life force. That's very Moon, Mars as well. And then how does that have an impact on your experience of the relational bond? Because I think the Two of Cups, we can sometimes like very much make it so practical. It's like, oh, relationships with a person or that person or this person, but it's so much more about your experience of bonding with people and what that's like for you. And so I feel just like with the Moon Mars, I feel like the tenderness in this spread, like the tenderness of connecting with other people. And what I will say about this is I feel like this week is maybe kind of this like sorting out how you feel about relationships and the more practical matters of what it looks like to be in these relational dynamics, and what feels good to you, what feels like equanimity, what feels like balance. Four as a number is so much about balance, and what feels like inclusion. Actually, really, Three of Pentacles really feels about inclusion. And then, yeah, feeling like this connection, this bond with people. All right, that is your forecast for this week. I am wishing you a wonderful week, sending you lots of love in the week ahead, and I will see you next week. All right, bye.